Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. What a tournament we had at Texas for Major 3. Toronto Ultra walk away as the champions, but OpTic Texas, what a miraculous run they made from the start of the losers bracket all the way to the grand finals, falling short in the end. But could this be the start of something for this roster with 3 more events still to go on the year? Where does the credit lie in terms of their recent turnaround in performance over the last couple of days? Obviously many people are pointing at Shotzzy for his unbelievable performance on Sunday before the grand finals, but Ghosty got a lot of credit for it internally as well. And you can understand why, given the performance of their SMGs and Dashy this particular weekend. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to dive into. Firstly, on the challenger side, the champions were not, unfortunately, Boston Academy and Doug sent to Martin. Thought this is funny as well here from Doug. So he tries to do the Shotzzy movement out of the window here. Takes a massive run up and just belly flops on the floor and dead to takes him down. This is slightly earlier in the tournament, and Boston, I think, even maybe won this series in the end. But yeah, Doug trying to make this play in a 3v3, and it didn't work out too well for them. Thought it was pretty entertaining, but they did end up getting top 3 this tournament, the Boston Academy. Good result in fairness for Doug's kind of first big tournament on the AR for the team, but I do wonder if again this roster will be having some shakearounds, because of course Doug had to run an AR because Beans got poached by the starting roster, which has worked out well for their starting team. They came top 4 this event, of course, better than they've really achieved so far. However though, you know, Crimp is there as well on this roster, one of their star-studded SMG players on the team, and there have been some questions if Boston are considering what they do with their starting team in trying to level them up maybe to actually being able to win an event rather than just get top 4, which is probably the ceiling, I think, for this present Boston team. Maybe they consider Vivid for Crimp or something at some point, because it worked for Beans, it worked, of course, with the Hicksy move for Toronto. So, you know, giving these, young guns a chance is probably a good idea. Now, whether that works for Vivid, that's a question. But, of course, next Major, there's no crowd, so maybe less pressure, you know, for the players in the venue. Unfortunate as it is that the New York event got cancelled. But the winners of the Challengers Open at Texas were Eric Boom & Co., the team notorious. Eric Boom, Metals, Weeman, and Goth Maple. Great to see, like, European Call of Duty on top at the moment, it's got to be said. And I do wonder as well, just because going forwards next season, the London team might no longer be London. It might be moved to Madrid because the new owners are Spanish, right? So there's actually a chance here that these guys really do put their hat in the ring. And I just think that there's so much talent in Europe that are, could be signed and picked up by, franchise league teams, and they have been at times, and we're getting more and more of it. But it's just, visas and stuff make it so much more complicated. But Hicksy, I think, is a phenomenal story for many. Like, the fact that he's broken the record that lasted for 12 years of a pro player winning their first ever tournament since Scump did it 12 years ago is, quite the statement for Hicksy, and I'm sure others are going to be very inspired by exactly that. And it was a great tournament for many reasons. Great upsets, of course. Clayster was included in that, and we'll discuss his thoughts on it later in the day. Phenomenal run from OpTic. The finals were great. Obviously, the crowd was fantastic. The viewership numbers were out of control, and obviously Scrappy won the entire tournament. I know that some were discussing whether Scrappy should have gone more rogue after the tournament was concluded, whether he should have been like talking trash on main stage and stuff. I think Scrappy, he has a good line between this, right? Because he'll talk trash when he beats teams in like regular matches and stuff, and also even before and after said matches and during matches for sure. But when he wins events and stuff, he's more respectful, right, to the crowd, to the opposition, which I think is a good way to be. And he's also very supportive of his teammates, right? He gave his teammates a lot of credit for this Grand Finals victory and also for everything they achieved online, despite the fact that individually Scrappy was the best player in the tournament for them. Of course, got the MVP, 99 overall, according to this Lion Man card. I mean, the hardpoint, the search, the control, all, a lot of this is purple all across the board. Incredibly impressive. And Scrappy's Grand Final performance of 1.33 KD ties him, I believe, for 3rd all time in terms of rookie Grand Finals performances, which is pretty outrageous if you think about it in COD history, especially because back in the day it was often best of 5s, so it was more achievable to drop like a 1.5 and just have a couple of crazy maps, whereas now it's the best of 7. Scrappy played 6 maps, so over 1.33 across 6 maps against that whole OpTic team was a remarkable result. And the first of many, I'm sure, for Scrappy, right? I think it was expected that this guy at some point was going to win something, and it's happened maybe sooner than we expected. And Toronto right now have across the board, they're good enough to do more than this and go further, because they have been, I would say, almost the entire season, the most consistent team across all 3 game modes, and that really was shown out, I think, and very evident this tournament, and very impactful when you're in a grand finals, given the way the formatting works here with the 2 controls in there as well. And of course, as Hicksy says here with the stat that comes up, pretty much the first time since Dallas 2011 in the same city, of course, where Scump achieved it 12 years ago pretty much, is where Hicksy becomes the first in the CDL era and the second in quite some time to achieve that. And Scump gives him a lot of props as well. Grats, kid. You play your life nicely, I tip it. And honestly, watching him on LAN, I think he was even better than he has been online for quite some time. Now, it's got to be said, right, the whole Standy thing is admittedly quite entertaining. Even as Octane was saying, someone get a wellness check on Standy because they brought Standy in. I think it was a good move at the start of the season for Ultra. He played well, and he didn't play badly when they dropped him from the team. But obviously, Scrappy rated Hicksy very highly, wanted that duo to work. That duo's worked out perfectly well with CleanX. The comms, I think, are fantastic. The chemistry there seems to be right. And Ultra just continue to make these great decisions. This was the tweet that Standy made, by the way, after, I think Ultra lost map 1, the first map they played at the tournament. Then they went on to win 3-1, and after map 1, Standy tweeted this. There are various reasons as to why he may or may not have tweeted this, but nonetheless, it's pretty funny that Standy cursed them a little bit, or cursed himself maybe a little bit after tweeting this, and then they pretty much just won the rest of the tournament without too much difficulty, to be honest, all things considered. And of course, iLLeY, his tweet was slightly more subtle, right, where he said, yo, after OpTic lost that series and got 3-0'd by Boston, and then after that, they made the crazy losers bracket run. They didn't win the tourney in the end, but OpTic played so much better over the final couple of days of the tourney. And my question is, how much of this was down to the crowd? I think that does play a role in this. I mentioned yesterday the Birmingham 2018 event, where the crowd definitely does give an extra few percentage points to how a team is performing. Of course, last year, the OpTic Texas team was pretty good, especially at the start of the year, but especially at their home major in Texas. And of course, like last year, Los Angeles Thieves, they won in LA at Champs, which, okay, maybe doesn't really mean too much, but nonetheless, the home crowds do give some boost, I think, especially subliners last year at their home major, Major 4. They made that crazy run. I think the home crowd there helped, and even Boston did pretty well at their home major, even with Zinni, you know, just as Zinni quite recently at Boston. So the home crowd does always give some boost, and I do wonder whether, as I say, Major 4 is unfortunately going to be in Columbus, Ohio, on land, but with no fans. Like, you know, is that going to be a slightly different story? But as Dashy says, heartbreaking finish to an insane run. They played really well in that entire run. Shotzzy, I think, was the standout player. Dashy did very well on the sniper, especially. Ghosty did his thing, and Huke was, again, inconsistent because Huke is going to be inconsistent, but the way when he's on point, then he really was delivering the goods in this tournament. And as Scump says, huge shout out to the boys, hell of a battle, bright future ahead. And that's the thing, can they get better from here? Because in fairness, they came top 4 last event. Controversial roster change, must be said. Getting top 4, making Sunday and dropping iLLeY for Ghosty, a brand new player to the scene. Very controversial change. That was, of course, led by Dashy and Shotzzy, right? They have the keys now. They made that call. And over the first couple of days of this tournament, I did not think it was going to be justified by the end of it, but it certainly has been. So where does the credit lie here in terms of their turnaround over the tournament? Because the way they played against London day 1, where they were on the verge of going out, let's not forget here, they were down like 100 points on game 4, down 2-1 in the series on Mikado. London kind of choke it a little bit, opt to come back. They win that. They win the game 5 as well, despite being down 0-3. Incredible clutch from them. And then they really caught fire from the Florida series and onwards to beat some very solid teams. Boston, of course, 3-0'd them day 1, taking down FaZe. Again, Dashy's record against Cellium is now 8-2. For some reason, FaZe just can't beat this team. But also, FaZe's hardpoint has been in the bottom half of the league. I think FaZe's hardpoint is like the 9th best in the league. And if you take out some of their results against Toronto, it gets even worse. So it's not exactly a massive surprise. I was actually very confident yesterday going into the OpTic FaZe series that OpTic were going to win it. And that's exactly what happened. And obviously, largely in part to Shotzzy, right? He had a 1.4 this series. This guy, when he plays the Tiny Terrors, seems to come different. And he's made a grand finals every year that he's played in the CDL era, right? Which is not exactly a massive surprise, but it is true nonetheless. And Formal gave him some gas. I did mention the clip last night. I'll share it for you guys now on just Formal's thoughts on Shotzzy, how when he's on point, when he's in this flow state, he is one of the best players, if not the best player that Formal has ever seen play cards.
I don't know, man. So
when Shotzzy's on in flow state, he's the best COD player I've ever seen. I'm not even trolling.
he's unbelievable.
He's just so unbelievably impactful. It's insane, bro.
Yes.
No, I think it's the truth, bro.
gas.
He's literally insane. He'll just drag a team to whatever. Like,
Halo kids, man.
he's just insane, bro.
Are Halo
He was
kids?
a- dude,
Are
the-
Halo kids different?
You should hear the way they talk about him too, dude. He was destroying Halo.
People
He was
up over
people up in Halo, bro. They talk about him like he's God.
Really?
Yeah, dude. This kid's simple. I'm telling you. His flow state's
Good
insane.
gas.
but he's
That's
a myth. He's
that
a
is
myth over there.
insane premium.
Matt said he is the best Call of Duty player he's
Oh
ever
my
seen with his
God.
flow state.
I think Formula has a great point here, and obviously we talk about the discipline issue with the OpTic side, and I think with OpTic, it's kind of an inevitability of the way they've decided to play the game. Let's just say there's two styles. There was the Rambo style, and now there's the Dashy style. Okay, maybe it's not the Dashy style, but it was the two competing philosophies within the team. They've chosen to go the Dashy way rather than the Rambo way. The Rambo way is very much, you know, it's disciplined, but it's also playbook stuff. It's never making the wrong play, ensuring you're doing the right thing at the right time, and at not overextending if unnecessary, and just playing it by the rules effectively, by what you should do theoretically in each specific situation. However, the Dashy approach and the Shotzzy approach maybe is that if you've got players like Shotzzy and Dashy and as well Huke to a degree, you've got to allow them off the leash and to break the rules. Those are players that have the talent to break rules and actually make it work. And if you don't allow them to break the rules, then you don't maximize their potential as players. So they need to be able to, you know, and even Rambo when he was coaching Dallas Empire a few years ago when it was Dallas Empire, like I think they allowed him to do this. But yet for Dashy was kind of a bit too constrained, and I think that it has freed up that team to an extent not having Rambo there. They can, like, if they were playing under Rambo again, I don't believe they would be having the results like they did against, you know, FaZe and Surge, for example, on that Fortress hardpoint. The fact that they were able to put FaZe in the 100-point club there, and they were demolishing even great teams on the map like Surge, like that doesn't happen if you don't allow players like Shotzzy to just hit flow state and go and do what he thinks makes sense in the moment. If you allow him the freedom, he's going to make mistakes. That's naturally going to happen, but he's also going to play much closer to his ceiling and to his pure impact level. The problem arrives to me, the hardpoint I think is going to work great in those situations. It's going to be inconsistent, but it's going to be great in general. Where they need to learn to slow down though is in search and destroy, right? Like they've got to have the Dashy element in the respawns and certainly in the hardpoints, but they've got to have a little bit more of that Rambo style in the search and destroy where they don't just go full switch the brain off and go like they would in hardpoints. Like they've got to learn if it's search to switch it up a little bit. I think that's the key tweak that I would like to see from OpTic going forwards, because I think their control can get back to 50-50. They played it pretty well in the latter half of the tournament. Taking down FaZe, of course, was an impressive result in that game mode, but it's just a few times in search and destroy where they play like they would in hardpoint, which can work, but when you're in a 70% winning chance situation and you throw it away to a 50%, those are the things that good teams are going to capitalize on, and where Toronto took them down at the end, I think, this tournament. So that's just my perspective. You guys might disagree, but also JP Krez, the only real coach analyst of this team, will talk, I'm sure, in the coming days about karma or whether that's going to go through or whatever, but he makes it clear that he wants some respect put on Dan Ghosty's name. Ghosty turned up this tournament, played well individually, but also in terms of the facilitator that he is. I mean, he said this online, right, or he said this in the online periods, that he said that he's basically unlocked Huke and unlocked Shotzzy to play how they want to play, and certainly in the losers bracket run they made, especially against FaZe, but even previous to that against Surge and against Boston, it was those two guys, Shotzzy and Huke, that were really making the impact here, and JP says that Ghosty is the facilitator to make the team around him play better, and you know, you can certainly understand exactly why. And as I mentioned, right, Dashy still holds the record, which is more than likely never going to be broken, but for a Grand Finals debut, the record is still Dashy with a 1.7 at Vegas 2019, and then Octane and then Scrappy ties Formal for the third highest all-time performance in a Grand Finals. I thought was pretty incredible for just his first run. And speaking of OpTic, I thought this is crazy as well. I was wondering what this stat was actually, because I remember over the last couple of seasons, whenever OpTic have gone to losers, they will play like a Florida or something, or London as they did this tournament, and they will win it all the time. OpTic and Thieves are undefeated when they lose their winners bracket game, which is actually kind of incredible. So this is the win percentage in your next match you play in the tournament after you get bopped out of winners, and you know, it's remarkable to me that Thieves are this high. OpTic, I think it's maybe a little bit more sensible, just because OpTic often lose in winners round one, and therefore they play a Florida or a London or a team like that quite often in the first round of losers, so maybe that's more understandable. Legion 1-0, pretty funny. They have made winners technically, but it was only at Major 1 this year, and Major 1 the format was different, so they haven't really done so. But some teams, for example Surge and Mutineers, when they lose in the winners bracket, they will go out of the tournament almost guaranteed in the next round they play, which is obviously not optimal. And just to mention for you guys to close out the video, we did hit a new viewership record on the Call of Duty League, and I believe this might well be all-time COD competitive era, just, you know, record broken, right? Because these are the numbers over the last couple of years. This is certainly CDL era. This number is 331. That is from the 2020 World Championship in Modern Warfare 2019. Of course, everything was online, but no one had anything else to do than to watch COD, I guess, at that time. So that was the previous record, but the new record was set yesterday with all the costumes in play. 332 22,000 viewers, there will be some crossover between people who watch Scump's co-stream and they're watching the main broadcast maybe, but that will be relatively limited. But still, remarkable numbers. Great to see. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.